Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, Red O'Loughlin here on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Today I'm honored to have, ironically, an American author. It seems like the last couple of 3 weeks we've had Canadian ones. Regardless, Cristy Robinson is the author of the survival series Upheaval and Divided, and we'll be talking about her books and many other facets of her writing experience and life in general. So, Cristy, please join me on stage.
Thank you, Brad.
Upheaval and Divided. When did you actually get the concept that you were going to write? You've been writing forever, you said, in your mind, but you actually decide, okay, I'm going to write a book. Tell us about how that little germ generated and you decide, okay, I'm going to go in this direction with this theme. And so I'm going to turn that over and then we'll continue on.
It does seem like forever. I had an all-night dream in 2012. And if you remember back to 2012, like ages ago, how do we even remember that long? Obama was president. I think a lot of America actually thought we were beyond racial issues and racial tensions. And then Trayvon Martin was murdered. And we all realized, oh, no, this is still an issue. And so I actually saw our nation have a civil war over racial issues, a dictator take over, and then my dream sort of morphed and fast forwarded to the future, and I saw kids growing up in that dictatorship who didn't have any relationships with people who did not look like them. And so, you had Black and white, Hispanic and Asian, all separated by walls and without any way to get to know each other. They didn't know the cultures, they didn't understand each other, but yet they wanted to, and they were a blank slate. And I met my main characters of the Divided series, Marcos, Rose, Jason, and Harriet. And I saw their struggles, I saw their desires and their wishes. And when I woke up, I was like, I have to write this. And up to that point, I was not a fiction writer. Maybe I dabbled in short stories, poems, but more nonfiction technical writing. And so I had to go through this whole journey of learning how to write not just one book, but 4 books. So that was fun. And it's been quite the journey since then. I got more serious about publishing in 2020 when I realized, oh no, we're really headed this way. And so the prequel came out in January of this year, and Divided Book 1 came out in September.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the black and white issue with the Obama administration, because I remember being in the Navy back in Vietnam, and that experiment that they started at that time probably was an experiment. Anyway, was the racial relations within the military, and it was a very, I thought, effective program. We were all kind of confused at the beginning, because I think anytime you try to make a change, regardless of what direction it is, there's always problems with understanding, focus, etc. Anyway, I think the military did an exceptionally good job of doing that integration of racial relations within the Navy. Anyway, just my follow up on your comment there that it seems like we reinvent the wheel, and something happens and it distracts, it disrupts. Boom, we're back to where we were. We really didn't learn anything. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, I remember as a teenager when the Benetton ads came out, and there were kids or teenagers from all around the world, and they were all holding hands, and it was a very reconciled moment, but then like that didn't actually play out in our lives. I'm a Gen Xer, so I don't remember Vietnam. My father served as well, so thank you for your service. But I remember sort of that feeling in the late 80s that we can fix this, and no, we can't. We didn't got it. So I was like, okay, maybe Gen Z will fix this. That's sort of what I think now. Maybe Gen Z can fix this.
Well, I certainly hope so, because it needs fixing. It really does.
Yes.
And I think in many neighborhoods, it's fixed. I really do. I think that we have problems, but it's not necessarily as widespread as, let's say, our public media leads us to believe. I mean, I live in a pretty good area. And then one of the things I'm really proud of that I live here is the fact that it has this very, very, very low crime rate, but very mixed in Asian, Hispanic, Black people. And so it just, that's not a hodgepodge, but it is a mixture of cultures, different foods, different languages. It's an interesting evolution. But I see things on TV and I'm saying, why? But anyway,
Yeah.
but that's part of.
Yeah, and I think too, like the racial divides are only one. You have political divides, there's economic divides, there's even educational divides. And I live in a pretty diverse area in Cincinnati as well, but yet you go on our Facebook page and oh my goodness, like the arguments are just crazy. I'm like, how we don't know how to disagree as a culture very well. And I would love for us to learn how to disagree without becoming mean, angry, and disagreeable.
Interesting. My mom probably browbeat us way back when with two sayings that I easily remember today because they were just drummed into me. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm. And if you can't say something good about somebody, don't say anything at all. And it just, I mean, they're simple little things. And we have somebody says something, it doesn't matter what it is, and we have to add our 2 cents. And it's just why, people have their opinions, let them have their opinions regardless. But let's get back to the author part of us, because apparently your books, and we can get parted into that. How do we unite the different cultures we have in the United States age-wise? Because your books are a young adult series, and there is a good section of the United States is young adult, but they have to live in the real world, which is more than just young adult. But anyway, as an author, you started writing. You had the book, you had the concept, you had the characters, you had the location, you had all that stuff. And then you start, you're doing this. Okay. How long did it take to get the first one done?
Well, the first draft was like, I want to say a few years. And then I was working with an editor that did not end up going well. I actually wrote to the end of the series, and that took about 5 years. And then I realized, I needed a different editor. And so I started working with someone else a couple years ago. And she really helped me hone the story concept and the plot arcs and everything. And so I felt much better about where we were going, where I was going. And so once I sat down to rewrite for what it felt like the 5th or 6th time, Divided, it did not take long. I was done in I think 3 months. And that's with working part-time and dealing with family and finding kids' colleges and all the mess that a mom has to deal with. So it wasn't long. And this book that I'm writing now, Caged, which is book 2, I'll be done probably in a month. And I've only been working on that for a couple, maybe a month total between taking a pause for a book launch. No big deal.
Okay, so that means in 3 or 4 years, you'll be writing a book a month.
Yeah, something like that. I feel like I could, but I have all these other things going on, right? So, but I also don't want to cheat the process. And even though I'm an author publisher, I do have a team. I have editors I work with. I've got a marketing team. I do recruit advanced readers. I get editorial reviews, apply for book awards. All that takes time. And so I think a book a month might be a little fast for that process, but for sure a major novel a year, and then probably at least one novella, short stories, sure, flash fiction. I write flash fiction too. So it's just kind of a process that I have to go through.
You're the first one to mention that you have a team that handles various aspects of your deal. It seems like most of the authors we have, they have an author they work with, they have a publisher they work with, a publicist they work with, they have whatever, but they've never referred to them as a team. When I coach books, I publish things and stuff, and I say to my potential clients, I have references that I can send you to, but I've never really thought about it, incorporating those references into a team. And I want to appreciate you for saying that, because that makes a lot more sense to, well, I can turn you loose with this person over here versus, I have a team member over here who can really help you.
Yeah. And I run it like a business. I come from the business world initially before, this is my meandering like this career path. I started out in finance and went into medicine from there, and then started a nonprofit to do international medical work, and worked in many different post-Civil War situations. And I couldn't do any of that alone. And so I appreciated the ability as an author publisher to think about my writing through the lens of business, and to run everything as a business. And that is exactly how I run it. I look at all the tasks that I have to do as an author publisher, and I go, I can do that one, but not that one. Maybe not that one. Let me see how much that'll cost to outsource, and versus how much time it's going to take me to learn it. And I think when you look at publishing and writing like that, it provides a more holistic viewpoint and allows you to both accomplish more and sell more books, but also reach more people. And that's really the heart. I want people to read divided so that we can begin to change the culture.
Okay, so you've had some cultural experiences in Sierra Leone, South Africa, Colombia, I think you said Afghanistan too, if I remember right, research. So you've had experiences where other parts of the world also have distractions in their normal daily activities that are different than ours. Some of those may be religious, some of those may be very definitely economic, tribal, etc. I'm sure in some cases, geographic in many. So there's issues all over the world. Yet we're here where geography really isn't much of an issue, and other factors that we wouldn't even think about. But you're in, say, Sierra Leone, as you call post-war. I can remember being in more than a couple post-war places, and it's a different world. People don't see that. They really don't. They've never seen it on TV, but it's not the same thing as seeing there, hearing it, smelling it, literally reaching out and touching it. And it's a big world. So tell us a little bit about Sierra Leone. That's probably one that most people have no idea about.
Yeah. So if you've ever seen Blood Diamonds, the movie, I think the movie was maybe a little dramatized, but also not as bad as it was in real life. I think it's really impossible to understand the impact of war, the effect of war on a nation or a culture until you've actually seen it with your own eyes. And your driver has had to go into the bush to get around a 10-foot deep crater from a roadside bomb, or you've met someone whose entire family was slaughtered right before their very eyes, and they were forced into a militia. That happened on the regular. Or you met a woman who was a sex slave, for lack of a better word, in another militia, and she couldn't do anything about it, or she would die, or they would kill her family. And I've met those people. I've looked them in the eye. I've heard their stories, and I've cried with them, and I'll never forget it. And it affected how I view our country, because I see the seeds of a future civil war in how we're acting right now. And I've seen the effects of civil war on a nation, and I don't want that for my nation. At the same time, I've seen people live through their version of the apocalypse. So I know it's possible. And that's why whatever story I tell at this point, I tell it with a thread of hope and courage woven throughout, because I've seen people survive the worst.
I was in Sarajevo toward the end of the Bosnian War. And in Sarajevo, bullet holes here, there, and yonder, and buildings. But anyway, one of the funniest things I saw was an advertisement for a brick that would stop an AK-47 round. Something that we would never see in the United States. It's, okay, fine. They've taken the technology. Now they have something they can offer. Across the river to Republic Srpska, it looked like Berlin right at the end of World War II. I mean, literally, it looked like it was just anyway. But people lived through it and prospered, and there was, little economies going here, there, and yonder, and people specializing in this and that. It's just very interesting in the way not only we reacted to it. We were in the American sector, the French sector, and they had different rules for things. I'm in the American sector, in American base. I can't go off base. I can't drink. If we go off base, we have to have so many vehicles and gunners and everything. But if I'm in the French sector, say in Sarajevo, so long as we have one person who's going to remain sober and carry a loaded gun, we can go out and drink and have a good time. And great food, wonderful people, just all sorts of things. Anyway, so you had your editors, and you finally found a good developmental editor that would help you develop the plot, the characterization, the timing. But how do you get into the mindset of your four characters? Obviously each are different. That to me would be a major challenge.
Yeah, it was, especially for me as a white woman, because, I have my own cultural upbringing, my own biases. And one, I need to recognize that. And I think that's probably half the battle. You recognize that, okay, not everyone sees the world like you do. Then it becomes easier to go, well, I wonder how they do see the world, and then go find out. So I did a lot of interviews of people who were in those ethnic groups, especially younger people who were part of those populations, to understand, what their lives are like, what their families are like, the things that are important to each one of them as a culture, and recognizing that individuals in any one culture may value one thing over another. But in the process, I was able to develop sort of composite important things, if you will. So, the different family structure things, how people relate. There's if you look at our world, there's warm cultures and there's cold cultures, and a warm culture is more community oriented, whereas cold cultures like we have in America is more individual oriented, task oriented. And how do I bring that difference out in the characterizations themselves, but also recognizing that the cultures after 45 years are going to look different than what they are today. And so, using my imagination a little bit and saying, okay, if they have access to these things because that's what the dictator has given them, then how can I build a culture around those things? How can I incorporate those things into culture in a way that makes sense in present day, but also when you cast out into 45 years into the future with variances and cultural divergence that will happen. So it was a process, and it wasn't perfect. There were times when I would give my sensitivity readers a section of text and they ripped it apart. I have to go back and write it again and deal with some other things. But finally, in the end, we were all very happy with where things were.
Okay, so how far into the future do you go?
45 years.
Okay. You said you had something you could read for a couple, 3 minutes. Maybe now's a good time that we can pick that part up, get an idea of your writing style, and then we can take it from there.
So Divided, the main character is a Hispanic young man named Marcos, and Marcos is wanting to escape his abusive father and the oppression of the regime with the walls that hem him in, and he figures out a way to get out of the city. So this is him in that process. There must be more to life than going along with the farce of freedom and prosperity Martin preached. Marcos didn't know how to fix this, didn't know if he wanted to. His shoulders slumped. Tears of frustration tumbled to the ground. Perhaps he should flee southwest to the independent Republic of Texas. Never mind, Marcos didn't know the way and had no food to survive such a long journey. Maybe dying while escaping was preferable to living a lie. Sweat cooled on his neck and chills overtook him. Marcos had only one reason to keep living, to keep fighting: Flavia. His sister had innocent dreams of finishing high school, becoming a teacher, and raising a family, and he could help her achieve them. Maybe seeing her happy would make a life of bondage worth it. What could one person do to stop Martin? Nada, nothing at all. Never before had Marcos felt so powerless. Huffing out a breath, Marcos stood. He pointed toward Queenstown and started walking. He never should have left. Even with the draft hanging over his head, if he didn't return, would they question Flavia? Would she get in trouble for his actions? He couldn't bear that thought. Marcos crept through the woods, jumping at every sound, though most were probably squirrels or chipmunks scavenging for food, just like inside the city. Moonlight brightened and the woods thinned. Glancing left and right, Marcos cursed. A 20-foot-high glass and barbed wire-topped wall vibrating with an invisible but still impenetrable sonic barrier taunted him. He was lost. No Havana or the cemetery's chain-link fence in sight. Shouts filled the air, and Marcos scrambled backward to the safety of the woods. He sprinted toward where he thought Havana was, but a warm body pinned him face down in the hard ground. A nightstick crashed to the ground next to his head. Marcos, the Havana Escuela boxing champion, squirmed and flailed, landing punches and knee jabs on the man on top of him. A cold circle pressed against his temple. "Move again and I'll shoot," a terse voice said. Marcos froze. A patrolman flipped Marcos onto his stomach, fastened zip ties around his wrist. The two men tugged him upward, and pain shot through his shoulders. Grimacing, Marcos stood to his full height and took in his captors for the first time. Obsidian patrols. Queso agrio, he was dead. There'd be no helping Flavia to achieve her dreams and forget freedom. That word was a distant memory. They frog marched Marcos less than a football pitch distance away, through an open gate and into the obsidian area. Marcos cursed. Images of beatings and executions lined up in his mind, vying for his attention. His pulse accelerated and his senses heightened. Marcos squirmed against his bindings. That cold circle pressed against the base of his skull. Nope, no escape. One patrolman opened the back door of a dark SUV, while the other shoved him inside, Marcos's head colliding with the vehicle frame. Blackness filled Marcos's sight as the door closed, the silence of the night deafening him. He was well and truly caught.
When you have characters and they have speaking roles, are you keeping that pretty much in the vernacular of the Hispanic young man? Okay. So that leads me to my next question. On an audiobook, you don't have one yet, is that correct?
I do not.
Okay, so you'd be looking for somebody that has the ability to take that language and actually come up with a young Hispanic man versus a Russian or whatever else. You try to keep things as best you can. You said you interviewed a lot of people in order to understand, and I'm sure they're talking, you're picking up the little words they use that we don't use. I noticed my wife mentioned the other day, it's kind of funny that we have Indian pastors at our church. They have adapted, from their normal language to the English they learned in India. They came here to our parish and they had to learn Spanish, but most Americans use the term, and we have one of the two of them that loves that phrase, and it's just, it's kind of funny at times because it's not something you expect some other culture to do, because they have their own little nuance and we have ours. It's interesting. I just find that to be, anyway. Marketing. You said you have a marketing team. When did you decide to start marketing your books as you were writing your books?
So like most authors, marketing is not my favorite task. I'd much rather be writing, but I realized that you can press publish on Amazon and nobody knows your book's there. It'll get lost in the sea of other books being published. And so I knew I needed someone skilled in that area. I took some time to learn first because I think anytime there's marketing involved, you can't just turn it over to someone else. You, as the author, the producer of the material, need to be the voice behind the message. And so you need to be writing the copy. I needed to be doing that. So I started on social media. I started with an email newsletter, so basic and, normal. I think I started out with 45 subscribers. Most of them were family and friends, but it was a place to start. And then I wrote Upheaval and used it as a free reader magnet. And that built my list up for a while. I've since put it into Kindle Unlimited. It's now coming out of KDP Select, so out of the lending program next weekend. So I can offer it again as a freebie. But those were the basis of my marketing efforts. But I knew I needed more. I knew I needed to recruit an advanced reader team. I knew I needed help with podcasts and blogs and all of the things. And so I hired a marketing company, people who love doing that. They don't write, they just market and do publicity work. And that's their gig. And I'm like, okay, experts, that's what I need. So I definitely understood that was not my skill set. And so I went to find people whose skill set it was.
You mentioned a couple programs that's available there on KDP and Amazon. KDP Direct, I think Unlimited. Where tell the audience, for there may be several out here that sort of know what it is, but they've never been involved with it. Why did you go that way? What is it really? What benefit does you, the author?
Well, believe it or not, Amazon started out as a bookstore. I don't know if anybody remembers those days, but they did. They started out as a bookstore, and right now, the count differs, but I've heard anywhere from 70 to 80% of the market, the book market, is on Amazon. That's US based. And they have a program that's like a library program called Kindle Unlimited. And for a fee every month, you can subscribe to it as a reader. And authors like me decide to put our books in that lending program. The reader reads them for no cost except that fee on a monthly basis. And then the author gets income on a page read basis. So Amazon takes that whole fund from everywhere in the world and divides it up by the number of pages read. And then you get your portion based on how many of your pages were part of that. The formula is a little cryptic and secretive. Amazon doesn't give away everything, but that's the gist of it. And so a lot of authors will put, especially newer authors like myself, will put their books into that Kindle Unlimited program, at least for a time period, to build up a readership and to allow people to get to know them at a reduced cost. And there's other things you can do. You can make promo days and discount your ebook and such and so forth. So those are also available to authors. But the Kindle Unlimited program is a pretty powerful way to connect with readers.
How did you decide on your covers?
So I've always had an idea of what I wanted my covers to look like, but that evolved based on where the market was. And your cover should fit in with other books on the bookshelf. So if you imagine that there's a young adult dystopian bookshelf and you're looking at all the covers, your cover shouldn't stand out as odd or different or weird or dated. Like, oh, those are how covers were 10 years ago, but now there's this other trend. And so if you notice, we've got the character with the back to the reader, and then the wall is a very prominent, it figures very prominently in the book. And so I wanted the wall there, and then a large title, and then my name as a pretty prominent, and then the subtitle on the cover of the book. Those were some elements. I worked with my designer. I said I kind of want the bluish grayish color for this book. I'm going with a different color for book 2. So I'm thinking about what they'll look like in series as well. And then as you can see, whoops, behind me the other way, Upheaval is orange. And that is very much a nod to its post-apocalyptic, post-EMP survival fiction origin. And so that fits more with the covers in that genre. So it's just, you gotta match your genre, and you gotta keep current with the trends.
Do you have intentions of putting this out on audiobook at some time?
I do, yeah. We'll do Upheaval first. And I do have a voice actor. He is a former Disney performer, and I think people are gonna really love his voice for these books. He's really excited. And the holdup is me. It's not him. It's my fault. I'm too busy.
There are some really excellent readers out there that amazing. How about video trailers for your books?
I do. I have video trailers. So there's a couple out there I've made myself on CapCut. I kind of play around. But I'm working with my virtual assistant. So that VA is another thing that is a good role to staff if you're an author publisher. And Raywin is really good at videos. And so we're working on a video trailer for the entire series. And I have character art coming as well. I just got the final proof copies yesterday. And so that's super fun, of Marcos in a scene from the novel that I can use on social media, on the website, and eventually in special editions of the book.
I noticed one of the things you're really proud of on your website is you're a third generation graduate of Indiana, if I remember right.
Indiana University, yep.
So why Indiana?
It's so funny. This is okay. So the year was 1988 and I was applying to colleges, and I was trying to convince my parents that I could go to school in California. And my mom's like, that's so far away. We lived in Louisville at the time. So I was like, okay, I'll apply to IU, like everyone else in the family. I didn't want to be like everyone else in the family. Okay. I just didn't. And, lo and behold, I get accepted. I get a scholarship. I'm going to IU. And about 4 weeks before I graduated high school, my family moved to Hong Kong. I would have been closer in California. So anyway, I ended up at IU. It was great.
Job opportunity, your family took over there?
Yeah. My dad, it was a job thing. My dad went over there for 2 years. And that was my mom waited until we all finished school, and the mom and the kids went over in June. And that was June 1989, right around the time of Tiananmen Square and all that mess. And so that was a wild time to be in Hong Kong.
It's an interesting place, but it has certainly grown over the years. It's amazing how some places just absolutely explode. But anyway, it's interesting. Now, was your major the same as your other relatives or family members who went there?
Not even close. My grandfather did a 2-year program and then went to optometry school, because at the time IU, this was, I don't even know, maybe the 30s or the 40s. IU did not have a optometry program, so he had to go to a particular program for that. And then my dad did 2 years and then went off to Vietnam, and then had to come back and finish up in accounting after the war. And then I studied East Asian language and culture and economics, and with a minor in business, and then went into banking and went into finance afterward. So I actually do a lot of bookkeeping now for our church. I'm the director of finance. So all those accounting classes did eventually help. But I was not a CPA and didn't even think about that as an option.
Okay, so some of the experience you had in college helped you in your writing. I'm sure the medical aspect of your life introduced you to new cultures. So it's kind of like there was a plan and you weren't aware of it, but it just sort of evolved over time. Is that a fair way of saying it?
It makes complete sense now. But at the time, I think my family thought I was nuts. You just got promoted and you're leaving banking to go into medicine, to go back to medical school, to spend $100,000 on a medical degree. And then I got to the end of that with a master's in public health and an MD. And I didn't end up in American medicine making, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I ended up in nonprofit work going to like the ends of the world. My family thought I was nuts. I know they did. It ended up working out in the end. So I look back at my meandering journey and it makes sense. But at the time, it didn't make sense to anybody else, only me.
Okay, so where is the series going? How many more books do you want to write? Is there a new series coming out that we don't know about yet?
Oh, I always have ideas rumbling around in here. I got really angry at a prompt one day, a writing prompt, and I developed this whole like toxic positivity thought control world. So that will end up appearing at some point. Just wait. But Divided has 4 books in it, and I'm only published 1. I'm writing book 2, I should say rewriting book 2. That will go to my editor in January, and then I'll get it back and revise and production. It'll probably be available for advanced readers in like June of 2025 for a publishing date sometime late September. I have not set that yet. I'm publishing a novella in the Divided world in February of 2025. So yeah, it'll be 1 novel a year until we get 4, and then 1 novella a year for a total of 8 books in the series. 4 big ones, 4 little ones. And once I'm done with that, I'll let my wanderlust dive into thought control.
Amazing. Okay, so we're at the end of the show. How do people get in touch with you? How do they buy their books? Do you have any author events, any launches, anything at all that people would be interested in? Please tell us.
So actually, yes, I have a few in-person events coming up. If that's your jam, I will be in Traverse City accepting the silver medal for young adult ebook fiction. I thank you on November 9th. That's not on my website yet. And I'll be selling books at the Traverse City Children's Book Festival on that same day, November 9th. And then I'll be at the Reader Author Vegas event as part of Author Nation in Las Vegas on the 14th and 15th of November, also selling books. You can also find me on my website, which is so wonderfully displayed right now, ccrobinsonauthor.com. Links to the books on all the retailers are there, as well as how to join my newsletter list. And I'm on socials everywhere as at ccrobinsonauthor. Come connect with me. I love talking with readers.
Okay, so for our audio audience, they can't see the crawlers and everything else we have going across the screen. CC Robinson, ROBIN, like Robin, Son, SON, author, all one word, ccrobinsonauthor.com.
Yes.
And Cristy, it's been a wonderful time today. I love it. Please come back and join us later. I always love it when I learn something from the other authors. It's just part of life, and you certainly filled in a few little nuances there that I didn't have. So thank you very much for that. Today I'm doing triple duty. This is the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I am Rebel Laughlin. I host the next show coming up called The Wise Ones. Jane Mohan is my guest, and she is a health nut and coach. She's been on before. And then I have a program that I do called Talking Heads, and we're doing how can we get ourselves set up for 2025? So health habits now, so that when 2025 arrives, we're already in tune. We're not just beginning a New Year's resolution. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Please join me in about 20 minutes on The Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. So Rebel Laughlin, take care. Bye now.
Hello, I'm children's author Diane Floyd Bain, and I am co-host for several of the USA Global TV and radio shows. I joined because of the purpose of the USA Global TV and radio. They provide content for the viewers and listeners, an opportunity for people around the world to have their own show or even be a guest on an existing show. We truly believe in helping others get their positive message out to the world. We also have the opportunity for the listeners. You can watch on several platforms, and on YouTube, you can ask questions and even give a comment. We absolutely love it. I love being part of the USA Global TV and Radio because I love positive messages. And who doesn't? And we need more of that in the world. We are a family, and we hope you will join us and become part of the family too.